Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here with the 19th episode of our first run through Book of Hours for YouTube. I should maybe explain here when I'm talking about a first run. I am familiar with the game, so in this case here I've not just played the beta, which is also available on the YouTube channel, but also the Twitch stream. Obviously, if I play the game sort of 3 hours minimum per session, 3 times a week, that's going to mean quite a degree of familiarity with the game already, but it's still nice to call it sort of the first run for YouTube, because I am treating this a specific way. I know I am taking a few things for granted in terms of my knowledge for the game, and so if there's something that you feel hasn't been explained properly, I do actually like answering questions like that. I know there's the challenge of the fact that a video is potentially a week, a week in the past when people ask questions. But if you've ever wanted to know something about the game, chances are I'm actually able to answer it. If in terms of where I've gotten, we've got through basically most. There's one more room of Nocturnal that I need, and I made some pretty good progress through the Dawn room. So it's generally good, pretty good shape. But this is about our current playthrough, and as feared, I have forgotten where I am in terms of my overall save. I'm recording this a couple days before this thing is due to go live. So I'm just going to run into the next day and we'll see what we can do. I seem to recall that we got some books that we may be able to read. And then there's a bunch of cataloging to do. I think I'll probably just wind up playing it by ear. Now, I did forget my tablet, but I should probably just be able to go. I have been trying to go from memory for a little bit for a few different items here. So, for overall priorities, let's say catalog the remaining books. I think if I can find a way of reading a few of these texts, so much the better. It's actually kind of hard to think. Deoris Book 3, I suppose, if I can get the two-edge memory like a contradiction, then we add that to the Cucurbit Barrette, and we're good to go. I suppose the question then is, where do I get the contradiction from? Because I don't believe we have it inside of any of these. Now, a storm. This is a big deal for me, and in other playthroughs this won't be as important. So for those of you who are not as familiar with Book of Hours, you can craft memories alongside other things. So in this playthrough here we got the Perugian Diaries, which will give us a certain type of song, and you can make more intense songs as you go by. So in this case, Storm is sort of a special thing inside of the game because it has a very large amount of heart and sky at the, for a starting player, whereas if you are a more experienced player, when I say more experienced, I just mean you've gone further inside of the game, chances are you're going to be able to generate 4 heart and 4 sky memories, and so you're not as beholden to the weather as much. But we're certainly not at that point here. So the one thing I do want to do is a review of what kinds of text I've got. So the Fallen Cross is interesting because if we combine that, so here's a perfect example. We have the opportunity to read the Fallen Cross, which will give us, we take the four sky from the Storm, we take the 1 sky from the Faust, and we add the Astrolabe, so we don't even need to worry about generating memories for that. If we had a big heart text, also Traveling at Night Volume 2. So Traveling at Night Volume 2, if I recall correctly, gives us a solace memory. So I may want to do the Fallen Cross just because I already have... I've got what I would need from the Fallen Cross in another form. And I think it's a little optimistic... Well, actually, it's not that optimistic for us to do Wrapped in the King because we have the core... So we combine that with the Storm for the 6, and then I would just need to find another 2 heart. So I suppose the question is, how badly do I want the sky and how badly do I want the heart? And then my final option, I suppose, would be to try and go deeper into the house. So I believe we have the 6 already available to us. Let's actually take a minute to work this out for ourselves. So with Mrs. Kill, we've got the 2 heart... 1 heart already, 2 from the core, which would be 3. Cake Bowls gives us 4. let's say we get a memory, oh well, the memory would be 4 as well, so that brings us up to 8. And then I suppose there would be drinks and such, but let's just see, do we have an example of a heart room that we're trying to get into that the storm could help us out with? Doesn't really look like it. In fact, yeah, all this heart that we need is already within my power. So, I suppose the question kind of comes down to, do I want the sky, do I want the heart? I think there's something to be said for going for the largest challenges that I can. So now the question is, and this may actually be one that I'm willing to consult a note for, what will give me... Well, we already know Apollo and Marcius gives us the... Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I think I miscalculated. Okay, wrapped in the king, we get 4 from the... We could actually do this at Natan's desk. I think I'm double counting the memory. So if we take wrapped in the king, we add the storm, we'll add... Oh, that's right, but I have a skill available to me, so if I take the core... weaving and not working would be sufficient. There we go, heart onwards. I can master this mystery. Enough heart to match mystery heart. So I suppose with that in mind, the Fallen Cross is probably within reach as well. So if we take our 1 sky, we add furs and feathers, so that would be 3. 4 from the astrolabe, so at that point we just add a memory and we're good to go. Okay, well I have a lot of books to read. But it's clear that I've been shirking a bit in terms of my reading. So there's 2 things that I'm going to do. I'm actually going to sit on... I'm going to sit on the text first, and I'm not going to do anything. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different elements of the soul, and that can be employed towards upgrading the existing skill. And then following that, what I can do is once I made a decision in terms of what happens with the skill, I can move ahead and either read another book or catalog everything in here. But it would seem to me that at a minimum, the 2 sky texts should be read. The Ed one too, for that matter, but we won't worry about that. I won't even hire Mrs. Kill at this point, actually, because I think here we can just keep pushing. Alright, Wrapped in the King. Detailed accounts of secret bacchanals and ecstatic dances observed in necropolises and graveyards in southern Europe. In southern Europe, in Egypt, and in Anatolia. The author is a self-confessed ghoul, an eater of buried flesh. He claims to have witnessed the dances while at his feasting. The dances draw from the traditions of the mysteries of the cults of Isis and Sybil, but include both symbolic and literal flayings, and the human heart is always central in the rites. The author punctuates his accounts with queasily sensuous descriptions of his own interrupted feasts. So I am relying a little bit on some specialized knowledge here. It's not just because it's a 8 heart text. There is a unique kind of memory that comes out of here. It doesn't, I mean, in some cases it's not even properly called a memory, and we'll see why in a minute. But Wrapped in the King gives us something rather special. At these greater feasts, a black pig is always crowned as king before its slaying. On this occasion, its heart was weighed in the balance against a knot of feathers, and its skin became a cape for the officiant. Its flesh was left for the crows, but I must confess my interest was not in its carcass, but in the perfumed flesh of the milliner laid fresh in the earth. So this gives us an earth sign, which we will talk about in a little bit, and then 2 lessons, drums, and dances. This actually winds up being quite helpful at points. So this is going to be a hard one to add to the library. I think in this case I'm going to put it on its own shelf. I'll maybe make a shelf for the weird ones for a little bit. But let's take a look at this special item that I got. So the Earth Sign, and the tracks of beasts and the convulsions of his own carapace. In egg vein and shell shadow, the many-eyed one found the signs which can be history. An Earth Sign is an auspice traced on the cloaked shape of the Earth, perceptible to the sensitive, interpreted only by the wise. So this has a number of very useful features. First of all, 2 nectar and 2 scale are nice to have because those are rather challenging to get. And it does count as a memory, so it does have the memory aspect. Sometimes something remembered might be something understood. But it also has persistent. Persistent memories survive the dawn, but when the season called Numa passes, they will depart with it. Numa comes to Brandkrug every 9 seasons, but exactly when is never certain. So if we don't use the Earth Sign today, this is going to be something that will pass over, like it'll pass over into the next day. And so this really isn't the right way to think about it, but if it really kind of comes down to it, you can sort of think of this being the sort of thing that if you don't have anything else to do with your elements of the soul and you don't have an Earth Sign, you can sort of convert your element of the soul into something a little bit more permanent by reading Wrapped in the King, which is a useful function for it. And the reason why I said, it's a little weird to call it a memory is that the other aspect it has is that it's an omen. Those who know see, those who see know. And the omen winds up being useful in some of the altars. There's other uses for it too, for particularly music, but I don't think... Well, we have this piano here. So it'll accept an element of the soul, a sound, or an omen, but you'll notice in this case it doesn't actually take a memory. So we could add something like an Earth Sign here. I wouldn't add drums and dances. You can actually use these as memories, but you can see here you get 2 memories, but you can also use the omen to boost something up. So let's say I had nectar or earth, I would be able to push this particular skill toward, or this particular instrument towards one of those 2 outcomes. Although it might be a bit harder with the moth memory here. So in this case, the application also isn't stuck. The application isn't limited to the type of memory, whereas here the piano is limited to moth. So a good use for this, for instance, would be impulse, because impulse will get me a nectar. Then, of course, I could apply, a sky nectar skill if such a thing exists. I actually don't know if it does. I believe drums and dances is heart and sky. But you can see how you can sort of manipulate a few of these things. In any case, we do want to get drums and dances, and it says here that this is heart and nectar. So unfortunately, fortunately, because I do have my health, we will be able to boost something up with it. I think we'll just use the Earth Sign at this point. But it's clear that I am going to be able to read another book. So let's get our sky knowledge, and I'll use Arab for that because I have more than one. So Ava's desk will help. Where were we? Yes, we wanted to read Apollo and Marcius because of its... Well, we have the option between Apollo Marcius and What Does Not Bark, but here we'll read Apollo and Marcius. The libretto of a lost opera concerning the contest between Apollo and Marcius and its tragic outcome. The librettist is identified only by their initials. So this is only going to take a minute. Now it's going to be kind of tight in terms of finishing off the sky text, so it's not likely that I'm going to be able to take up all the skills. What I think I'll do is I'll leave a Faust in the background, or no, I can't leave a Faust in the background actually. Another leaf on the Tree of Wisdoms, drums and dances. The first musics were not made by mortals, but taken from sand coil and sea thorn, from flint heart and dragon womb. So not ready to commit it yet, but let's take a quick look at what this will get me, so I can apply this towards drums and dances. That will get us metal, the heart, the thunderskin, the eternal drum. This is Horamachistry. The Thunderskin, the eternal drum that beats to preserve the skin of the world, is a god from flesh, which is to say he was once mortal, but the horned axe, last of the gods from stone, required his death, and so the Grail gave him up, although he loved her. Love is always subject to the will of the hours, as all Horomachists know. Sorry, I was taking a minute. There's a detail in there I want to follow up on at some point. And then, of course, I have my Bosk priority, which is sort of where the game recommended I search, but the root, the Thunderskin, the eternal drum that beats to preserve the skin of the world, is a god from flesh, which is to say he was once mortal. He died to preserve the last god from stone. He died for love. He died for necessity. In matters of Bosk, these three are often intertwined. Interesting. So I never associated the Thunderskin as being dead. That's what I get for not committing this stuff to the Tree of Wisdoms sooner. So there can definitely be some uses for me, particularly because of the Earth sign. I can see some uses for me upgrading my heart, which would be one reason to commit that. But again, I don't have an immediate need for it, so I'm going to resist the urge for now. I am, however, going to get this upgrade in right away, so we'll use the Earth sign in this case for its nectar. There's always more to learn. Now, I'm not going to pick up the new, I'm not going to pick up my new toy quite yet. I am, however, going to start using everything but the Faust, I think, for cataloging. In fact... Alright, here's Ava's desk. I may actually go over in terms of the text that I want to read, so I didn't really think this through. In the original myth, Marcius lost the musical contest and was flayed by Apollo, who later regretted it. In this version, Marcius' skin has a further history. The skin of Marcius gives oracles, and is later smuggled to Phrygia, where the priestesses of Sibyl use it for a drum. At the climax, the striking of the drum drives would-be violators of the priestesses to suicidal madness. The opera ends with a wistful hymn from the youngest priestess on the beauty of mountain pines. So there's the memory of a storm as opposed to the storm itself. We can now use this at Solomon's desk, so we'll add the Faust, we will add the Memory Storm, we will add Furs and Feathers for its sky aspect. This brings us up to 5, so we need the Astrolabe for the remaining sky aspect. And finally, we will take the relevant text, which in this case is the Fallen Cross, in which Julian Cosley, Magus, immortal, occasional anarchist, argues that through language the Carapace Cross decayed to seed the lives of our ancestors. I can master this mystery. Perfect. Feats and feints of forgotten things, the Carapace Cross, the line of Antaios, the world of a low red sun. Though much is taken, much abides. Okay, so there's our higher level drums and dances, and now we start cataloging some books. I can do these one at a time, but I think we have, I think we have enough time in the day for one at a time. So we'll start with Arab. This book was probably written around the time of Hush House's baronial period, roughly the 1500s to 1700s. If I examine it, I can learn more about what knowledge it might contain. So I've been neglecting the niches a little bit, but we've got Solomon's study here. In 1818, the very Reverend Solomon Husher became the third librarian of the Curia of the Isle. He took rooms in the Long Tower as his quarters. Husher's tastes were Spartan, although the Curia generally liked a little more luxury. No one ever quite dared to redecorate the place after his disappearance. So let's add that to the third librarian position. I held off on a few of these because I hadn't unlocked the Grand Descent, but as you can see, we've got the full range of it. So we'll add things kind of as we go by. There's other ones that I can put in, but we'll run into them kind of as they emerge. So here we have the Republic of Teeth, a 6 scale text. So things may have well, Drums and Dances doesn't have scale, so we would... I don't think we quite have what it takes, to be honest. Say I get 3, 4... Nope, actually the Omen helped us. So what I can do is I can take my heart, the tool, so that'll give us 2. We take pentiments and precursors, which gives us 4, and then finally we use the earth sign, so we'll add that to the to-do list. Another baronial period book. And again, I have the option of sort of using Mrs. Kill to open up any number of rooms, but what I really should be focusing on right now is anything that would require scale, seeing as we would require the services of Tin Miner. Yeah, not worth it there. Alright, let's take a look at the book. Speech is a wound, silence is silver. There is no silver door, nor can there be, even in the moon's house. And here we have the sea does not regret. Eshen Fekri, one-time Secretary Salvant of the Curia of the Isle, responsible for the Curia's healing efforts, writes of his experiences in Brandkrug and hints at his travels elsewhere. So with our tryst we have 1 moon, and we did unlock the lunar globe, so that gives us 2 to start with. I don't recall if we have... Oh yeah, actually moon is... moon's one of our easier ones. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. So one last bit of cataloging to do today, and we'll use the FET. And then after we catalog that, we will have a better understanding of the world. No, we'll have a better understanding of the text we just read. Now I have an idea of this book's nature and its contents. The Barrowchild Elegies. The Barrowchild, a Gaulish adept who won a place in the ranks of the Order Lamea, enumerates great shadows laid to rest in tombs of power and discusses their various conditions. So there's two factors at play here. So number 1, it's quite a high-level winter, but more importantly it has Chionic Theoplasma. This book has suffered the attention of one of the Chili names or hours, perhaps even a god from nowhere. This contamination can affect your tryst and health and spread to nearby objects. You can remove it with a skill that's effective against theoplasmic contamination and at least 7 heart. So we might be able to put together the heart, but the problem here is we do actually need to see what skills we have to remove these curses. I believe we're coming up short. We can deal with some infestations, but yeah, we're not in a case to deal with this. So again, I don't need to worry about this if I don't use tryst or health. And in this case here, I would be using core to remove it, and I would be using whist to read it. So this isn't going to be something that stops me from working with it. But I want to keep it separate for obvious reasons. Okay, so unless I want to spend some money, we'll wait out the rest of the day. But the only thing we really have to do here is finish reading a text and then move on to planning out the next few steps. And this will be a little bit of an indication in terms of how I'd like to spend my next few turns, just because we have so many books, both in terms of cataloging as well as ones that we can read. So we're in a good spot now to actually be able to consume some of that knowledge and possibly turn it into the things that we can use to open up more of the house. So once some of the books are read, I can start hiring Mrs. Kill again to start, unlocking a few more of the relevant rooms. But for now, I'm happy enough to sort of do the kind of day that I did today. So Without language, there can be no words. Without words, there can be no message. But only in silence can there be no error. And lo, even in that beginning, in that first of messages, an error. Thus did we enter the house. All right, so we have a regret from that. I don't really think... I have a regret to work with, so I'm going to make a new shelf in the reading room. And Oronoscopy. So this one I seem to remember had something to do with telescope gentleman Thomas DeWolf. Thomas DeWolf, second Baron Bragkrug, who they called Baron Silence, built this observatory in 1576, by happy coincidence, just in time to observe the passage of the Great Comet in 1577. The Great Comet is, well, perhaps you will be the one to write it in this episode. There's some ones that are good. There are a couple commenters that I'm always happy to see. There's actually, on that note, there's a couple of you have been stopping by the channel. Usually it's when I've been streaming later than I normally do, so apologies for those of you that like to catch me, but I wind up doing it at a later time. But I've been delighted every time somebody stops by and just says hi or says that they came from the YouTube videos. It's nice to be able to put some, I don't know, just to be able to interact with some people in a different format. Alright, Oronoscopy. Consider the star. Hath each star its 7 names. Observe that these names are never shared. Thomas DeWolf, 2 sky, 1 moon. So that doesn't necessarily get me access to anything aspect-wise. I haven't been doing that much crafting, so some of the benefits haven't been realized for other reasons here, but it's still nice to grow out the list. In fact, we'll take a minute here and just see what these things can be committed to. We really only have Horamachistry here, so this would get us another fet if it came down to it. Alright, I think we are done for the day, so let's see what the next day brings. So in terms of just general opportunities, Republic of Teeth is available to us. Deoris is a question mark, so I'll maybe move that one over here. I seem to remember working it out that I would be able to read it, but... Daybreak. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. And it's a sunny day, so sky might be relevant here. Yeah, actually that saves me the effort of reading Apollo and Marcius again. So I'm thinking this might be Solace. I believe this was Lantern, Revelation. And I actually don't remember what Traveling at Night Volume 3 gives me. I feel like a little bit of a fool off of that, but I'll deal with that later. Okay, so the sunny day gives me kind of my marching orders for at least the first one. We will read Traveling at Night Volume 2. If memory serves, that gives us a Solace, so that should be pretty straightforward to deal with. Oops. We'll use our fresh new Oronoscopy for that and add the Astrolabe. Traveling at Night Volume 2, the annotated dream journals of Christopher Lopoli, sometimes called the only readable occultist. Literate, entertaining, bewildering. Okay. So the challenge here is a little bit like the challenge that I had in the previous day, which is that if I want to be reading books, I need to wait to see what the final result is if I don't know what the lesson is. I can, of course, choose to just wait on the lessons. Yeah, you know what? I will at least read one, or catalog one text. But yeah, there's lots of kind of individual things that I can be doing in between, but waiting on a text, one, it lets me read it as it's being studied, but number two, it gives me the options for when the lesson comes up. Now again, I can amass a number of lessons. If Numa hits, that causes problems, but in general, it continues to allow me to do or to sort of have a few more options. Holding back allows me to have more options. I mean, and then if I store the lessons learned, then essentially I just kind of work out an ordering in which to try and make the most of my elements of the soul. The hissing key strikes me, excuse me, is a little too difficult right now. So here's what I'm gonna do. I know I still have. I'm at the 30-minute mark, and I do need to be kind of careful with the pace at which I'm doing all of this, because I do need to get to bed tonight. But what I'll do is I'll finish reading Traveling at Night, and then we can work out the rest of the day. I might even go to the end of the day, but I think that'll take too long. There's an extensive discussion on the comparisons between Elapoli's own dreams and those of the Emperor Elagabalus, who Elapoli regards as a dupe or avatar of the sun in rags. The white is west of the world, Elapoli remarks, and winter does not wait forever. So Deoris is definitely in reach. Fekri's Herbery, 3... Let's see. Okay, so Deoris, we take the Heart Drums and Dances and the Cake Bowls, then we add the Earth Sign. So yes, Fekri's Herbery's there. That gets us a satisfaction. Elagabalus found his way to the White Door at last, thankfully. Speech can't pass the White Door, and honestly, Elagabalus never had anything interesting to say. I tried to follow in his footsteps, but I never learned enough of the White. I suppose I'm thankful for that too, but here's what I do know. Missing our whist, we can say we too do not know enough about the White. Alright, Sights and Sensations is a pretty straightforward one for us to add in. So, acquire Sights and Sensations, use this lesson to acquire a new skill. This means that we have basically another text available to us, and then we can... I could try reading the Republic of Teeth. So, Scale from the Heart, Hourglass is 2... Yes, so I will use Arab to read Wrapped in the King again. And I don't have the Consider verb available at the moment for taking care of the rest of the books, but I figure once we have the Earth Sign, we can use the Core, the Trist, and the Fet to catalog these 3 remaining books before the end of the day. But that will be something that we save for Friday, so I will probably wind up recording the next episode on yet another day, but I should have a rough idea in terms of what my overall plans are. Thank you for dealing with these rather bumpy episodes the last couple of times, but I'm actually rather happy with the progress we've been making. We added another statue to the niches. Again, like I said, there's more that we can add, but I figure it gives us a chance to be careful when we're reading texts to find the specific items, or specific references. And yeah, the overall plan for the next couple of days will just be to get through the reading list, because it is actually growing as expected. It's growing at a pretty reasonable clip given the number of baronial and curia books. The pace will drop off, which is why I haven't been rushing these things too much. But wait a minute. Where did I put the Elapoli work? I'm running with a hypothesis that the Orchid Transfigurations give solace, but we'll find that out in a future episode. All right, thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.